I think my first encounter with Swamiji, the first moments, was July 4th, 1969. So my birthday at Ananda is also Ananda's birthday. I hope I didn't bring any of my bad karma to Ananda on that day. But I had just arrived. I had gotten a ride from the Midwest, from Madison, Wisconsin, out to California, and was sort of dropped off down in the Masters Market area. I had a little backpack and a sleeping bag and a few other things. And there was nothing. Masters Market was much more dilapidated than it is now. There was an old barn, which has subsequently fallen down, and there was a little pigsty, because it had been a pig farm here, and there was nothing, and there was no one around. It was just like, oh, I traveled for 3 days to get here, and then I felt something behind me, and it was like a flow of energy, it was like a wind, really. I thought a big wind had come up behind me, and I turned around, and there was this man walking forward. And I'd never seen anyone with that bearing before, with that posture, just this remarkably erect spine, shoulders back, focused. He was dressed very casually. He had on Bermuda shorts and a colorful print shirt. My memory was that it was a Hawaiian shirt, but he said, no, I didn't have a Hawaiian shirt then, so I'll take his word for it. But he just moved past me, and I'd never felt the presence of anyone like that before. It was like purpose, a man with a purpose. And you could feel the energy carrying him, a wave of energy carrying him forward. And then I think it was a few days later, I was standing in the dust there, and I just thought, something big is going to happen here. I don't know what it is, but I know. I could feel it both from the presence of that man and just the energy. And of course, that man was Swami Kriyananda. And he said a few things to me on that occasion, which showed that he knew me pretty well, even though we had never met. And I was sort of surprised by that. And then began the weeks and the months and the years of Swami being calmly active and actively calm, never stopping, never letting up, writing books, giving lectures, traveling, supervising development of the community, always putting out that energy, expressing it as it flowed through him, but always with the sense, and this is the important thing, even if I look back at any project I was involved with Swamiji, it was always with the sense of, I'm doing this to serve God. I am not doing it for any other reason, not to become important, not to get recognition, not to make money, anything. It was always that calm, centered mission of, as we sang in that song, let come who will, but if they all turn home, your soul knows the answer, go on alone. And there was that purpose. If people came, fine. If they didn't come, fine. If they understood what he was doing, fine. If they didn't, fine. I am doing this because I am serving God, because that's the purpose of my life. And so it was with that intense activity, but always centered. I never saw him uncentered. And believe me, we went through some pretty challenging times together, but I never, no matter how difficult it was, I never saw him any other way but calmly centered in himself. And in a way, it was a little challenging, because you always felt his center of reality was not in other people, although he cared about them deeply and he did everything he could to help them. But his center of reality was his love for God. And that's from the point from which everything sprang. And it was the most incredible gift. Many of us were trained by him, spent time with him, heard him lecture. Some of us didn't. But I do want to encourage you, if you want to draw the blessings of Ananda, attune yourself with Swami, because all of this is mastered through him. It's nothing less than that. And so it's that power of the gurus, that power of the soul, saying, I will do this for you, God. And if people don't understand me, so be it. But I will do this for you. And he did. Once we were visited by a spiritual teacher from India, Sant Keshavdas. This was during Swamiji's lifetime, but Swami was away. And we were showing Sant Keshavdas around. He was regarded as a saint from India. And he just shook his head as he saw everything, and he said, what a lot of tapasya, what a lot of sacrifice Kriyananda did to create this place. He understood that it was not just a free gift, somebody gave us a whole bunch of money and then the buildings went up. It was tapasya. But that tapasya, don't misunderstand, for in his case, it was a joyful self-offering. I never saw him like, oh, what do I have to do now? It was always, Lord, I get to serve you. Even if I'm sick, I get to serve you. Even if I'm tired, I get to serve you. Even if I'm misunderstood by others, I get to serve you. And so there was always that flow of energy and calmness in the storm. And many of you know this story, but calmness in the storm, we were driving up to Tahoe, a small group of us, to go skiing. Many years ago, Swami skied. And it started snowing over the Donner Pass, and the flashing lights, pull over, put on chains. Swami was driving and skiing. Many of you didn't know him in that stage of his life. But so Swami put his foot on the brake, but unbeknownst to any of us, the tires were bald, and the car went into this tremendous skid, and it was just swirling across I-80, is it? Yeah, I-80. And then cars were coming this way, and we were just all like that. Swami was driving, and the woman sitting next to me in the back seat she freaked out, and she started screaming, Swami, like that. And the car kept spinning, and then finally it crashed into a Greyhound bus parked along the side of the road. And Swami turned around and he said, what? But always that calm at the center of this storm. And still I can feel whatever happens has happened and will happen in the subsequent years. I can feel him with us saying, ride it out. Don't take it so seriously. It'll all work out. Just be in that calm center. But then another aspect, I don't want you just to think he was this workaholic. Another aspect was his love of that which is beautiful and harmonious, and that we hear in the music so much, and in his writing, but it's more accessible in the music. And one of my favorite songs of his is Emerald Isle. And there's that beautiful line at one of the verses, my song is the story of the lilacs of May. Well, what story do the lilacs of May have? They don't have a story. They don't have drama and conflict. They're just the lilacs of May, and they're beautiful, and they're an expression of God's beauty and joy. And when the lilacs bloom at Crystal Hermitage, that's Swami's story. And let me pause one moment here and thank every pair of hands and heart that create those Crystal Hermitage gardens. Those changes people's lives to go there. And, we had, rough estimate, 13,500 people visiting those gardens. And I don't think anyone came away without hearing the story of the lilacs of May. Just to be able to see. And I remember when we would be riding in the car with him, there would often be these certain kind of clouds. And I always in my mind, I always thought of them as Swami's clouds. And they would just be many-colored, fluffy, beautiful, astral. And he opened, and that's why he created Crystal Hermitage, because he knew we were on creating the community. Well, it could be very utilitarian. And we need this, and we need that, and that's fine. Of course we need a utilitarian, functioning, practical community. But we also need the lilacs of May. And that's what he showed us. Don't ever forget to stop looking at the wonder and the beauty all around you. And in every sunset, every little bird, to see God's presence there. Because that's the story of the lilacs of May. And it goes on. And it's fresh all the time. It's the dewdrops, and it's the roses, and it's the beautiful souls that come one by one from all over the world to our Ananda centers worldwide. And it's so beautiful to see, because you can be in Assisi, you can be in the New York City Center, you can be in one of our many centers in India, Mumbai, or Delhi, wherever it might be, and you see people coming for the first time, and you can see that look in their eyes, they've come home. And that's the story of the beautiful souls that are drawn to that vision that Swami created. And then finally, that's what I read, that Whispers passage about hearing the speaking voices of past, living, and the future. There was a beautiful book that was written some years ago by, I believe it was T.H. White. It was called The Once and Future King. It was about King Arthur. It's a beautiful book. And that's how I always saw Swami, the once and future king, because he was a king. I mean, Master told him that Master had been William the Conqueror, William the Norman, and Swami felt and that he was his son, King Henry I. And Catherine wrote a beautiful book about it, Two Souls, Four Lives, about the lives of William and Henry and Master and Swamiji. So he was a king, and he had that nobility about him. And you couldn't be around him and not feel not demeaned, but uplifted. And I'll tell you a little story. One of the sweetest memories I have of him, people were always trying to figure out who they were in that lifetime with Swami. And some of them, I think, got pretty close. And we were talking with Swami one time. This was over in Assisi, Italy, at his home. And people were talking, and then finally he looked at me, because I always kind of backed up at that point, because I didn't have any clear feeling about that. And he said, well, do you have any thought about who you were? And I said, well, not really, Swamiji. I think I was your daughter, and I was some obscure princess that didn't have a really big role to play. And then the conversation went on, and then we were leaving. It was the end of the evening, and we were just at the door. And Swami looked up and he said to me, good night, princess. And it was just like I was his daughter. It was such a sweet moment, such a sweet moment. But he's also for the future, not just the past. We live the present with him, but he was always showing us the future. He said, for example, that busloads of people, this was when the gardens were really not developed at all, and he said, busloads of people will come to see this garden. And we kind of looked at him and said, really? But it happened. It happens. And so many things. He said, well, Master said that the community's movement, the community's lifestyle would be the lifestyle of the future. And we don't see it happening now, but we see the disintegration of the world as we know it, I believe. We see the disintegration globally of politics and government as we know it. And something's got to rise to the surface. Some lifestyle has to rise to the surface that gives people, validates their worth and their meaning. And so Swami was part of the future. And so many of the things he said, we couldn't see it. But we, as time goes by, we see, oh, that's coming to pass. And that's coming to pass. And with permission from Christian, he told me this morning, and I thought, oh, this is too good not to share. He said he had a dream about Swami a few nights ago. Christian's a young man who lives here, who's currently doing the sound booth, and he said I could say it. So he said, I'll just be beat red, it's okay. But he said he had a dream about Swami a few nights ago, and Swami came in a spaceship, and he landed, and but the spaceship had a big square window, and they looked in, and it was this beautiful, comfortable living room. It wasn't like the spaceships with the Star Trek and, take us out, Mr. Sulu, and all that. It was just this comfortable living space, and I thought that's the kind of spaceship Swami would have. And then he invited everyone into the spaceship, and he just hugged and embraced everyone. And I thought, yeah, that's where he is. He's not limited by time, past, present, future. He's not limited by body. He's not limited by anything now. But he's present. He's present, past, present, future. And he's guiding each one of us. He's saying, come join me. Come join me in my astral ship. And leave behind this world of sorrow, leave behind this world of delusion, join me. And he has given us all the goal, and he's given us the way, and he's given us the example of his life, and he's also given us his grace and blessings to be able to come to where he resides, to join him on his astral ship of joy, devotion, and love for the Guru. So we celebrate his life now and into the future. And may each of us, as we go ever deeper in our spiritual life, in our efforts, may we feel his guidance, because it's there. He wants us to join him. And he wants Ananda to be a place all over the world where people can awaken and say, I knew there was purpose. I knew there was meaning. I knew there was joy. I knew there was a spiritual home. And he gave all of those to us as he found his own freedom.